Good evening. I hereby call the Ordinance Committee for Thursday, October 13th at 6 p.m. to order. Good evening, everyone. I am Shirley Azak, Chair of the Ordinance Committee. I have members Councilor Farwell, Mendez, and Thompson present, and Councilor Minicello is on his way. He did give a call to let me know that he will be a few minutes late. And I would also like to recognize that in council chambers this evening, we have union members of 1162 here present during our meeting. With that being said, Madam Clerk, could you read item number 1?
Item number 1, ordinance. An ordinance creating a revolving fund pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E.5, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E.5, that the following language be adopted as the City of Brockton ordinance. The opioid settlement revolving fund shall be created to support the following programs set by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. 1. Opioid use disorder treatment. 2. Support people in treatment and recovery. 3. Connections to care. 4. Harm reduction. 5. Address the needs of criminal justice involved persons. 6. Support pregnant or parenting women and their families, including babies with neonatal abstinence syndrome. And 7. Prevent misuse of opioids and implement prevention education. Expenditures from the opioid settlement fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the mayor of the City of Brockton, provided not more than $250,000 may be expended from the opioid settlement revolving fund during each fiscal year without the consent of the City Council. Invited to attend, Councilor Susan DeCastro, Chief Financial Officer Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Councilor.
Good evening. What a long day this is. I will just make introductory remarks that the mayor's office asked me to sponsor this. I did a little bit of looking into it, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity to bring funds into the city to further help us combat opioid abuse and treat it in our city. And so Mr. Clarkson is here to discuss numbers, but I just want you to know I hope you will support this wholeheartedly. This ordinance and the funds that will come as the result of it will make a difference in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clarkson.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. So the structure, as Councilor DeCastro described, is not dissimilar to the cable revolving fund that I'm sure you're familiar with. So the source of the funds for this are a couple of different class action settlements based on lawsuits that were filed against the manufacturers of pain medications. And so the structured settlement for Brockton has us receiving payments annually out until 2038. The totality of those payments are about $4.5 million. And they are the amount varies every year. It's not a steady payment schedule, and I'm happy to get you this payment schedule if you'd like it. But from $209,000 this calendar year to up to a maximum of $378,000 in 2025, and then it averages anywhere between $200,000 and $250,000 all the way again up until 2038. So our thought is to create a fund, a revolving fund, where that money could be allocated, and I'll just give some examples. There's, of course, a long-standing substance use treatment program here in Brockton called the Champion Plan. The City of Brockton, before this settlement was reached, but several years ago when Secretary Walsh was still mayor, created a position in the city to deal with the multiple facets of substance use recovery. The money could be spent on something like that. So the language is pretty broad, and it's intentionally so, and it really gives the city discretion, but it does have to certainly be limited to dealing with the disease of addiction and all of its impacts. So I heartily endorse setting up this revolving fund. Despite all of the attention and the efforts, as you more than likely know, last year, for the first time in our history, more than 100,000 Americans died of an overdose. So the problem is not abating. The need is acute. And this is a really good opportunity for the city to receive and use funds specifically for this purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Councilors, do you have any questions? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Mr. Clarkson. So who in the City Hall would be in charge of directing these funds?
The mayor, I assume he does have a director of social services, Jasmine Bratcher, who I'm sure would be involved in the execution, but ultimately, as with all of the budgetary revolving funds, it would be under the policy direction of the mayor.
And when we set up this fund, if that's the will of council, excuse me, does the expenditures come back to the city council for appropriation or authorization, or is this all then managed, the full amounts all managed by the mayor's office?
Well, so much like the cable revolving fund, and it was set up, again, similar in structure, this amount is lower. So with the cable revolving fund, the mayor has discretion annually to spend up to $750,000. Right. Anything over that, he needs to seek the advice and consent of the council. This is set up in a similar fashion, but that amount is set at $250,000.
Sorry, I just noticed that right now, so understood.
All right.
And lastly, have we already received our 2023 allotment, that $209,000 you spoke of?
So thus far, we've received payments in 2 tranches, and they represent, and again, I'll get you the spreadsheet. So there are 2 different settlements, and we've received so far 2 payments. One is $154,000, and one just over $162,000. So those do represent the 2022, and again, these are the schedule is calendar years. Okay. So we've received both calendar year payments from one settlement. I don't see that we've received the other. So we have a little over $300,000 on hand, but it has not been placed in any specific account. It's just sort of waiting for the disposition of your deliberations.
Understood. And as a revolving fund, this is reauthorized annually, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkson.
Councilor Farwell.
Just one quick question, Mr. Clarkson. There'll be many mayors between now and 2038. I'm assuming that whoever is mayor, they could choose all or any one of these to allocate funds, but it would have to be within this structure that we've created?
That is absolutely correct, yes.
Okay. And funds could be shared with the school department if they had a program that needed?
Most certainly, yes.
Right. Thank you.
Councilor, any other questions?
No, I think this is great. I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Clarkson, I think it would be great if you could send us those spreadsheets, and then would you keep the city council updated annually with the funds that come in, or, what in future?
Oh, yes, yes, of course.
Perfect. Thank you. I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to recommend favorably to the full city council.
Second.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? The ordinance passes. Thank you. Madam Clerk, item number 2.
Number 2, ordinance, that the city council adopt the following amendment to the ordinance relative to the permitting and regulation of food truck operations in the city of Brockton. Under application requirements and procedures, section 1 shall be stricken in its entirety and replaced with the following language. 1, all mobile food vendors shall provide the Board of Health with a copy of a state-issued hawker and peddler's license. Under application requirements and procedures, section 2 shall be stricken in its entirety. Under application requirements and procedures, section 5A shall be amended to increase the permit annual fee from $100 to $125, and the following language shall be stricken. The application fee shall be $50 to eliminate an application fee. Under application requirements and procedures, section 5B shall be amended to increase the permit renewal annual fee from $100 to $125, and the following language shall be restricted. The renewal application fee shall be $50 to eliminate a renewal application fee. Under application requirements and procedures, Section G shall be amended to increase the fine for a first offense from $100 to $125. Invited to attend, Counselor Jeffrey Thompson, Ward 5, Counselor Mark D'Agostino, Ward 3, Executive Health Officer Dr. Eno Monacer, or designee, Director of Planning and Development, Rob May.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I was contacted by Mr. May, and he will not be in attendance this evening, but I do see that Dr. Montezir is here. And Counselor Thompson, would you like to? Yes, please, at the podium.
Good evening. Jeff Thompson, Ward 5 City Councilor. So this ordinance, the original food truck ordinance, came before this board a few months ago. And this ordinance is an amendment of that original ordinance, just basically to clean it up. What we discovered after the initial food truck ordinance was passed was that some of the requirements were duplicative. So namely, in this ordinance, the amendment, we're removing the requirement for a city hawkers and peddlers license. So the original idea for the hawkers and peddlers is that there was a query check that is involved when you come seeking a hawkers peddlers license. That license is a $325 fee. It's an annual fee that would have to be paid every year. When speaking with some food truck operators, what we learned was that that they usually present to a city their state-issued hawkers and peddlers license, which also requires a query check. And so by requiring them to do a city hawkers peddlers, all we're basically doing is increasing the fee for duplicative action. Additionally, in the original ordinance, there was a $50 permit fee. We felt that it was really kind of complicated on when that fee is paid. Is it an application fee? Is it a fee to just seek the inspection? A lot of other cities and towns, when we spoke both with the Board of Health and other food truck operators, it just made it a lot easier and cleaner to make one application fee that would include the application and any requisite inspection. So we did increase that application fee from the $100 to the $125. That's reflected in this amendment. And then lastly, what we did was we upped the first offense if, if you're in violation of the food truck ordinance due to you're in the wrong, say, in violation of the ordinance where you're parking too close to an existing restaurant or you're operating on a public way. The first offense, what we found it reasonable to make the first offense match what the initial application fee would be. Therefore, if you never sought an application and you were fined, you would actually be paying less than what you would have if you sought the application. So we just wanted to kind of fix up the initial food truck ordinance. We believe that this is a better ordinance. It's more clear, and we believe it's more fiscally reasonable and would attract more food trucks to operate in Brockton because we're not, we're not making it cost prohibitive.
Is that it, Counselor? Okay. Counselor D'Agostino, I know you're in Council Chambers. Would you like to speak on this, or?
Yeah, I'll just briefly comment. So again, after we presented and debated in front of this ordinance committee and then the full council, the original ordinance, Councilor Thompson and I had the opportunity to sit down with some of the folks from the Board of Health and look at ways to just simplify this process. So that was the goal. And again, similar to what Councilor Thompson said about the state license, again, if they've got that, they've got all those background checks done already. It seemed like there was no point in having them do it again with the city. Again, the goal was, again, after, Councilor Thompson and I sat down with the Board of Health just to simplify it a bit and streamline things a bit. so that it would be a simpler process for the food truck operators that want to come into the city. And, you know, I think that makes a lot of sense. The whole point was to attract them to the city, and if our process is a little too convoluted, that may, you know, that may stand in the way of what we're trying to accomplish here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We also, I know, Dr. Montezir, you mentioned in an email that Health Inspector, Mr. Butler, would be available to comment on this. I don't know if you want to. Would you like to speak on this matter, either Dr. Montezir or Inspector Butler? Okay. I mean, everything's been outlined by the counselors. I don't know if you have any, you know, anything that you would like to add or...
Good evening, Madam Chamber, and good evening, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity. I think that's a great piece of legislation that the councilors, that this chamber passes, so we're looking forward to implement it. Hopefully, we'll obtain a copy of the full document so that we could work with that and make it the law of the city. And I also have Inspector Robert Butler with me here, and I'll refer to him for any question or suggestions. No?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
So I'll open up to the committee. Any questions, councilors? Councilor Farwell.
I have a question for either one of our colleagues. Someone has a state hawker and peddler's license. 9 months later, they come in here and they apply for a food truck permit. But in those 9 months, they've been to court and they've been convicted of assault and battery, domestic violence, indecent assault and battery. They're on a suspended sentence. If we don't do a Corey check, what guarantee do we have that when we issue that license, that record is still clean as it was when the state did the background check?
I think that'd be caught the following year, but I guess that would be the same, you know, if they sought a city hawkers, peddlers 2 months after we give them a license, they commit that crime. We wouldn't know until the following year in that situation as well. So you're right, it's a possibility that it could happen. I don't know what the reporting requirements are, but if that would be caught the following year when they sought the new state-issued hawkers peddlers license. I see that as being, you know, a low probability, and so, you know, to require the city to have one again, it's just more cost-effective. We're trying to attract food trucks, and by making them pay a $325 fee that really no other city or town requires them to pay, I just think that, you know, we'll get less food trucks operating in the city. It's a good point, but I think whether we, you know, require them to do a Corey a month after them receiving that license, that they could be in the same situation, and as a city, we wouldn't know until the following year anyways.
Well, just in response to that, we need not necessarily charge them a license fee, but why not have them sign a waiver that we can conduct a Corey? And then on the application, we could put down that if you have a court appearance and conviction, you are required to report it to the city.
I think those are all reasonable. I think those can be done by the Board of Health. They have a lot of authority in how they put together their application. They could ask for that, at least a copy of their current Corey, or, you know, we can talk to them about seeking an additional Corey. There are fees attached to that, though. But we have a lot of leeway in our application process, and it doesn't necessarily have to be part of the amended ordinance to include that. So we can talk further about that, and if we feel like that's a smart move, we can have that included in the initial application process.
Very good. Councilors, we have our clerk, Mr. Cruz, here, who would like to speak on this matter, so.
Thank you. Actually, I just wanted to say, Corys are one of the most misunderstood items that we deal with. We have certain other licenses that call for a Corey. Convictions are the only thing that show up on a Corey. And a Corey report, we're not allowed to see them. The Board of Health can't see them. The city has certain people that are trained to receive the Corys, then they're to give us a report if they see something that they think. But if somebody were to get arrested in the middle of a year and was coming up for a new Corey, it wouldn't show up if they've pled out, or if they've done, you know more of the terms than I would, but if they're in unless they are convicted of a crime, a felony, I believe, it does not show up on a Corey anyways. And the Board of Health isn't allowed to see the Corey. In fact, by HR is the only people, even if it's not for hiring city personnel, the only people other than the police department that are allowed to see a Corey. The items that we vote on, that this board would vote on, we're only allowed to say there is information on the Corey and not recommend against doing it. But Corey is a very misunderstood process, and it's probably not the best way. We've been actually discussing with the law department different ways to get the same information, because it's really it's not the tool that it should be for a city or state for these kind of things. It's difficult. And the other thing about getting rid of the city aspect of the hawkers and peddlers license for this, the problem with that is a lot of these are temporary licenses. They come in and they want, the hawkers and peddlers license has to go through the process of coming to the city council. So if somebody came to the Board of Health for a hawkers and peddlers license, it could be 5 weeks before we get it done, because it has to go through this council, has to be advertised, has to be, so a hawkers and peddlers license, if they have their state hawkers and peddlers, they have everything that we need them to have through our office anyways. So it's taking it out of this. Otherwise, somebody could lose the opportunity to come in for their license, which is basically a temporary license in this case. So it's a good thing in this case to take it out. The other thing is, in our ordinance on hawkers and peddlers, somebody with a hawkers and peddlers license can't stay stationary. Well, by the very definition, the truck is stationary for the 2 or 4 or 6 hours that it's working. Technically, we'd have to make them move every, I think it's 2 minutes or 6 minutes, and that could be a problem. We'd have to get into changing our ordinance on hawkers and peddlers. So taking it out of this, and as long as they have their state hawkers and peddlers license, I would recommend moving forward on that. Any questions?
Just in response to that, and you've identified the exact problem. When the person gets the state hawkers and peddlers license, they could have a court case pending, and it won't show up in their Corey.
Corys do not show anything but convictions.
That is correct. So now, in the interim, they come here and they apply, and there has been a conviction. I just want to make sure that people who are manning trucks in and around playgrounds where there are kids, that we've done our, as the mayor would always say, our due diligence.
I understand that.
And that's the only thing that worries me.
But quite often, we wouldn't have some of that information, and it can't come to the public. It's a very, we need to find a better way to get that information, because Corey does not really work out well as a tool to use. Attorney Resnick and I have had this come up in several other issues. There are other licenses that we in our ordinance calls for a Corey, but we're not allowed to even look at the Corey. I can't get it, and I can't give it to you when you're voting on a license. I can only tell you that we've been advised there's a reason not to, or to move forward on this. So,
Attorney Resnick, can someone waive their right and allow disclosure of their Corey?
I mean,
In other
yeah.
words, I know we can't get it as a matter of right, but can an applicant waive, as part of the application process, their right and allow the city to have the licensing authority have that Corey?
I mean, I guess they could, but again, if you're going to rely on in your scenario, it'd be like requiring them to do a new Corey.
what would,
Because you're still taking that same risk, disclosing my Corey from when it was done 9 months ago with the state, could still,
No, I mean, if we ask for a contemporary Corey, could we say to an applicant, Ms. Resnick, as an applicant for this license, we're asking you to waive your right to have your Corey protected and allow the licensing authority to see it?
if I could.
I don't
The
think you
recommendation,
should.
I don't think you can. We've been through this a little bit with the, but what you could do is, as part of the application, the Board of Health can put a question on, have you been arrested for, you can ask a question.
Yeah,
And
you
that
can do
doesn't
that.
stop the person from, you could still give the license, if you could ask for the details. I mean, every arrest that somebody has had doesn't preclude that they could do, but you can put a question like that, which is a better question to ask, because that's what I'm saying is the Corey, if you asked, have you been arrested, that's a different answer than have you been convicted. And again,
I very familiar with
Yeah,
Corey.
obviously, you would be more so
My
as
only
a,
concern is parks, playgrounds, and schools, but
Yeah.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilors? Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any other questions, councilors? Oh. Thank you, councilors. So there is just one thing that I would like to request, since this is fresh, Attorney Resnick, and to the clerk's office. So if this is passed, once it's passed, it goes back to the city council. I would request that we send copies of these ordinances to the correct department so they can start enforcing them.
Sure.
Sometimes I know things fall through the cracks and they don't get the ordinances in time, so I would request that this is sent to the Board of Health as soon as possible. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably before the city council.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. The ordinance goes back favorably back to the full city council. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, number 3.
Ordinance. An ordinance establishing a Human Rights Commission in the City of Brockton. Preamble. It is the policy of the city to assure that every individual shall have equal access to and benefit from all public services, to protect every individual in the enjoyment and exercise of civil rights, and to encourage and bring about mutual understandings and respect among all individuals of the city. It is the goal of the Human Rights Commission to ensure that the city residents are treated fairly and equally by eliminating bigotry, discrimination, intolerance, and prejudice. Membership. The Human Rights Commission shall consist of 7 members, all of whom shall be residents of the city during their term or appointment. The mayor shall appoint, subject to confirmation by the city council, persons to serve for a period of 3 years or until a successor is appointed and disqualified. The mayor shall designate a chairperson and preside at meetings of the commission. Duties and responsibilities. The Human Rights Commission shall have as its principal responsibilities to ensure that all city residents are treated fairly and equally by constantly striving to eliminate bigotry, discrimination, intolerance, and prejudice. 2, to facilitate the exchange of information to residents in the area of education, employment, economic and business development, and city services. 3, to foster enhanced partnerships between public safety department and residents. 4, to recommend to the mayor and the city council programs and services which enhance the quality of life for all residents. 5, to publish information accessible by the city's diverse communities regarding city, federal, and state grants and programs which contribute to the health, safety, and economic stability of our residents. 6, to network the community-based organizations with the goal of sharing information, awareness of city services and programs, and economic assistance to residents. 7, the commission shall submit in February of each year to the city council an annual report detailing its activities for the prior calendar year and stating its policy recommendations and legislative recommendations to all departments, divisions, agencies of the city, including the mayor and city council. This ordinance shall take effect 90 days after approval to allow for appointment and confirmation of members of the commission. Invited to attend, Councilor at Large, Winthrop Farrell Jr., Jacqueline Murphy, Diversity Commission.
Thank you. Councilor Fowler, I know you mentioned Ms. Murphy isn't able to attend this evening's meeting.
Fortunately, she's working late and can't attend, so.
She is a member of the Diversity Commission.
Yes,
We appointed
yes.
her, okay. Did you want to speak on
Yeah,
this?
let me start by hopefully ensuring that you all have the handouts that I brought, and that'll give you a chance to take a look at it. This ordinance would remove reference to the Commission on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and it would substitute a Human Rights Commission. However, in consultation with Councilor Rodriguez, and because other communities have done this, I would move to amend what has been submitted to you so that wherever it says Human Rights Commission, it would read Commission on Human Rights, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So
Say that one more time?
I'm sorry?
Just one more time. I didn't.
Yes, wherever it appears Human Rights Commission, it would read Commission on Human Rights, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. That's a motion to amend the ordinance that has been submitted.
I'll second that.
And just very briefly,
So a motion was made and seconded to make this amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? The amendment passes.
and very briefly, the reason for that is that we do not want to appear as though we're doing away with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So why reconstitute, reconfigure, and do something differently? The Diversity Commission in this city held a meeting on November 7th, 2019. They never met again until November 4th, 2021. And then they met again on 12/2/2021. There were no meetings during 2020 when COVID was occurring, no Zoom meetings where residents could have called in information that might be needed to help the city cope with COVID and indicate where resources should be properly allocated. And what's even more interesting is there are no minutes of any Diversity Commission meetings on file. I sent an inquiry to the clerk's office, and back on August 22nd, 2022, at 10:16 a.m., I received a reply, "I don't see any records. We may never have received them," which really is a blatant violation of the open meeting law. So we need to do things differently. It's the year 2022. And in consultation, again, with others, I did some research, and you will see in one of your enclosures that the following communities have a Human Rights Commission, which includes diversity, equity, and inclusion: City of Framingham, City of Malden, City of Cambridge, City of Pittsfield, City of Worcester, Town of Belmont, City of Fitchburg, City of Gloucester, Town of Amherst, Town of Stoneham, Town of Wakefield, Town of Dedham, Town of Needham, Town of Hamilton, Town of Ipswich, City of Lynn, City of Chelsea, City of Revere, Town of Beverly, City of Northampton, Town of Easton, City of Newburyport, Town of Wenham, City of Newton, City of Boston, Town of Wayland, City of Somerville, Town of Watertown, and the Town of Greenfield. So this proposed ordinance would expand our approach to fairness, to equity. And one of the handouts which I've given to you is a discrimination complaint form, which was adopted by the City of Newton. We could adopt this, or we could adopt something else, and it would give someone an opportunity to file with our Commission on Human Rights, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion a complaint saying, "I went to purchase a vehicle and I was denied credit, and unfortunately it was because of the color of my skin." Or, "I went to rent an apartment and unfortunately I wasn't given the apartment and went to someone else." It seems to me that if we want to be serious about this, we can't sit back and not have meetings take place. We need to educate the public by presenting informative programs and discussions, collaborate with residents, school staff, students, and businesses, resolve complaints of local discrimination through mediation or referral to MCAD, Mass Commission Against Discrimination. All of this is on your handout. I don't think I should take a long time with this. I think you know where I'm going with this. Let's do it right. Let's not perpetuate what's going on now. Let's do it right. The one thing that I would add to my colleagues is that I put in 7 members. That is small in number, but I did that because oftentimes it's hard to get a quorum. I would not be opposed to having 9 members. But I'm just concerned about having the chair call a meeting and then have a sufficient number of people appear to have a quorum. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I hope the handouts that you have in front of you are clarifying, and I'd like to see the city embrace this. I think it's overdue, and Attorney Resnick indicated that having a Human Rights Commission or a Commission on Human Rights, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion would be an expansion of what we're doing now. And many communities have done that. And I think we should be in line with that. And the last thing I will tell you, and I was asked this question by a member of the press, well, given who you are, basically I'm not a person of color, why wouldn't I just do this work and hand it off to a minority member of the council? Number one, I think that might be insulting if you thought that I had to do the work for you. But number two, just because I'm not a person of color doesn't mean that I don't have a moral and ethical obligation to use my position to try to help people, to try to bring about fairness, to try to bring about equity. I don't think it's so much about what we look like, but how we conduct ourselves in office and what we try to do for people we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So, just on my personal note, I like the amendment because abolishing the Diversity Commission and naming it just the Human Rights Commission did concern me, but in adding that it is diversity, equity, and inclusion, that makes me, I'm much more comfortable with that, and that's something that I can support. I do have a question. Now, for the past few years, we have been appointing people to the Diversity Commission. What happens to those appointments?
There was one meeting, that's why I wanted Ms. Murphy here. There was one meeting, she attended, no minutes kept, no agenda, they never met again. And I believe we recently appointed someone else. And what I'm hoping is that if this is successful, the mayor will take some of the people who currently serve and the new appointees and put them on this newly constituted commission and let them go to work, let them do what's needed.
So if I understand it correctly, the members that we've appointed, that's up to the mayor to decide whether he keeps
Yeah.
them as part of this. Okay, very good. Councilor Mendez?
Yes, thank you so much for this. I really like it. And I did have concerns and issues regarding the Diversity Commission. The question that I have is, would this also involve like city departments if someone has a complaint, whether it's the mayor's office, the city councilor, or even a police department that they wanted to bring it before this commission? Will they also be the ones looking into that?
If it were a city employee and they're covered by a collective bargaining unit, they'd have to follow their grievance procedure that's in the CBA. But if it were a resident, as
Yeah,
they do
a
in
resident,
Newton,
yes.
you would complete an intake form, and you'd file a complaint, it would go to the commission, and the commission would have the person come in, look at what facts are presented, and then hopefully either mediate or refer it to the appropriate agency. So yes, that it would be, at least as I envision this, it would be an opportunity for people to be heard if they have the facts and evidence to support that we have not conducted ourselves properly here in the city with respect to fairness and equity.
Yes, and the reason that I'm asking that is because item number 3, it says to foster enhanced partnerships between public safety departments and residents. And there's been a call from civilians to do a civilian review board for the police department when they have any complaints, concerns. Would this be something that they could use as an avenue if they wanted to address a concern that they feel their rights been violated for some reason?
Well, and now I'm not an attorney and you are. I think if people feel their rights have been violated, they probably should see an attorney. But where we now have a new Peace Officer Standards and Training Committee at the state level, which has the right to investigate and actually decertify or take away, suspend or remove a police officer's appointment, I almost think a local civilian review board is duplicitous of that effort, and it's really far more preferable to have a panel in Boston that doesn't know anyone in the city, doesn't know any of the police officers, render an independent judgment based on the facts and evidence. But let's assume someone called the police for help on a domestic violence issue and the police failed to come, or they came and they just blew it off and said, you know what, we're not going to help you. Then I think that's the type of issue that should go to the commission, and then the commission should work with the police department. It's almost like quality control. I mean, there are so many things that we can do better, but we need the facts and the information in front of us to decide what course of action should we take to improve things.
No, and I like this, and I do think our police department is great. They do a phenomenal job, but there's always that need from the community. Where do they go if they have any concerns? So this is phenomenal. So thank you. Thank you for filing that.
Colleagues, I'm going to be honest with you, I plagiarized this from other communities. There's no sugarcoating it. This has been done in other communities. Much of the language that you see here in front of you came, I believe, from Newton, and I'm trying to remember the other community. So rather than reinvent what we should do, I just felt we should go with what so many other communities have found successful.
Thank you, councilors. I know Councilor Rodriguez is here. Would you like to speak on this item?
Sure.
Thank you.
You know, politicians and microphones, you know how it goes, right? Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Council Fowell and I had a long conversation this afternoon with regards to this, and this order is something I totally support. I actually especially like the fact, and we've gone over the optics in terms of the Human Commission versus the diversity and inclusion, so I don't have to kind of reiterate that. But I also like number 7, the point number 7 in terms of accountability, because the way it's been in our city, in the sense we appoint all these committees, and they go to work supposedly, but we as the approving or the consenting body never get to report back from their activities of what some of the things that they're doing, because I feel that that's one of the things that we would have caught from the previous committee. Had they not been meeting, we would have known, at least on a yearly basis, that they're not meeting, they're not doing their part. So I like that fact that we are going to hold some folks accountable to the body that actually consents their appointment, in the sense. So I just wanted to share that as one of the minorities on the city council, that this is something I support and I'll continue to support, because I think it's good for the city. It's good for us to give our folks the ability to bring their voices forward and be heard, and I think it would be something that we should all be proud of the fact that we've put this in the books. And I thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Minicello?
Yes, I just have a couple of questions. What authority will this board have, this commission have, in terms of, I guess, yeah, what authority will they have? I mean, what is their existence going to be and bring about? I mean, so I'll give you an example. I'm a car dealer. I sell cars, and someone comes in and they want to buy a car, and I run their credit. They have crappy credit, and I say, can't sell your car, can't get the loan. And someone's mad and leaves and says, you discriminated against me because of whatever. They come down, they fill out this thing. Joe Blow car salesmen now have a discrimination complaint against them. They can very easily say, well, the reason I couldn't sell them the car is they have crappy credit. But now they can't, I don't believe, provide the private credit information on this person. I mean, I just think it opens up a host of problems. Someone comes into my law office and says, I want you to take my case. It's a crappy case. Oh, I don't want to take the case. And they say, well, you don't want to take the case because of whatever, my religion, the color of my skin, my this or that. No, I don't want to take your case because it's a crappy case. It's a lousy case. So now they come out, I'm going to file a complaint. So now, Tom Minicello Law Office is in front of the commission having to defend himself. Or I say to myself, I'm not wasting my time with this. I'm not coming down to the commission to waste my time with this. And now my reputation, my office is badmouthed. It's, I just think there's a host of possibilities that are going to be very negative to a small business or businesses of this community if there's someone that just doesn't have a legitimate gripe. And how is this board going to, I guess, give that person their reputation back? Or I just guess, how is this going to work is my question.
If I could, Madam Chair, through you. Here's a better example. Councilor Rodriguez goes into a used car dealership, and he wants to buy a 1994 SUV. They claim they run his credit, and they say, I'm awfully sorry, I'm not going to loan you the money. Now, Councilor Rodriguez brings his own credit report in, and lo and behold, he's got a 780 credit score, FICO score, and he doesn't have any defaults, he doesn't have any late payments. The fact of the matter is, he wasn't sold the car for some reason that was either contrived or was it based on who he is? This would give the opportunity for someone to go before the commission and say, this is what happened on a particular day, this is what I was told, here's my credit report, and here's why I think that I was discriminated against. Now, the commission would listen to that person. I would hope that they would contact the car dealership, get their side of it, and if the commission felt that it was warranted, they would forward it along to the appropriate state or federal agency.
So are they going to do that due diligence before?
If I can finish, you and I know, and it's been well documented in the press, that, and I'm not trying to sound like a civil rights leader here, folks, because I don't pretend to be, but you and I have heard in the press about people who had their house appraised and they happen to be people of color. And then lo and behold, you put a couple in that same house that looks like me, and, oh, the house is worth $200,000 or $300,000 more. I mean, that's been documented. I wish we didn't have that go on, and I hope it doesn't go on in Brockton, but there ought to be an avenue to look into it if it does.
Well, I guess my point is this. I mean, before the board starts calling people in, then, is there going to be a process that they have to cull out and do some due diligence before they name someone and bring them before the board without having any documentation to support a legitimate claim? Because like what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, Councilor Farwell, about redlining and real estate appraisals, but to be quite honest with you, I've been doing this real estate law in the city of Brockton, and for a long time now, I've never seen any complaints here in Brockton about someone being lowballed for an appraisal because of the color of their skin. I mean, quite frankly, in this city, appraisals are up. Well, they were up until the rates just jacked up. But so I'm all for a legitimate case, certainly, of discrimination. But I'm just concerned for the small business person who, for some reason, isn't going to serve someone because perhaps the people were nasty or rude to them in their store or what have you. And without a process or without a mechanism that the board has to find certain criteria before they start naming entities and dragging them in, I just see a person's reputation. Let's say you're marrying tuxedos, and someone that is coming in there for service, does something, acts in a weird way or what have you, and they say, we're not going to serve this person. We can't deal with this person for whatever reason. I mean, and then they say, well, I'm angry. I'm just going to start filing a complaint with the discrimination, with the commission. Well, I just think that the board, if we're going to go along with something like this, I just feel that we need to make sure that people are protected and the innocent are not going to be dragged through a process. And look, I love this city. I think that Brockton, for a big city, is a heck of a great place compared to other places in this country. So it's kind of hard for me to, it's just kind of hard for me to say, oh, wow, Brockton really is discriminating against people. I find it hard to believe.
Councilor,
it certainly happens.
We paid $4.5 million to someone because of that.
Well,
I mean, unfortunately, it goes on. And I would say respectfully to you, I hear you that there shouldn't be frivolous accusations against a person or a business. But perhaps we could find out what criteria the commission uses in Newton and employ the same thing. And we have a law department that could provide guidance to the commission so that we don't do exactly what you're afraid of.
right, well,
I just think that in a city this diverse and this large, there are things that go on that I think that we should look into, and we should help people steer them to the right agency, whether it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or MCAT or something. And if nothing else, knowing there's that extra level of accountability, maybe we'll bring out better conduct.
and to your valid point with regard to the settlement or the incident here in Brockton, I mean, again, that kind of proves or makes me concerned. The small business person in this city does not have the protections or the wherewithal of the city of Brockton. And the city of Brockton, if they were dragged through or a complaint was filed, would have basically said, oh, this is a legal matter, we can't talk about this. But yet the florist on the corner doesn't have that legal firepower or financial backing behind them. So to me, we need to be very careful of the small businesses and the people that do not have resources and they're just trying to operate a small business in this city and who are just trying to make a living, and all of a sudden, if you have some people that are a little overly sensitive and interpret everything as being for one reason or another, but it's certainly, or it can be justified if by common sense that these people are going to be dragged through the mud, and that's my concern.
So,
And just my final comment is, the largest group that gets discriminated against is women. Women. They don't hold positions of authority. That's well documented, so, you know, there could be a woman of any color in this city that gets passed over for promotion in a business and is discriminated against, that doesn't have a bank loan money to them or something like that. I just think in the year 2022, we as a city have got to provide an avenue where the information can come in, it can be properly processed. If there's nothing there, as they say, you go where the evidence takes you. If the evidence and facts don't support it, then you nullify it. There's nothing substantive there. But if there is something substantive, I'd like to think that we as a local government would help that person get to where they need to be to have their issue addressed.
So Signature Healthcare or Harbor One Credit Union or Harbor One Bank, I should say, someone goes up for a job and for some reason or another feels that they were discriminated against and didn't get the job. So we're going to drag in the president of Signature Healthcare and Harbor One and whatever entity and WB Mason and get involved with their human resources department.
So-
It just seems to me that this is the possibility of in certain instances, you know, I see it. But in other instances, it can certainly be used as a tool and as a weapon against certain people.
So Councilor Minicello.
One more point. You know, the Diversity Commission hasn't met in I don't know how long. You want to pick from the Diversity Commission to put people on this board?
So I'm just
I
going to
wouldn't do
comment
that.
a little bit on that, Councilman Minicello. This, I believe, Council Fowler, is just a part of this ordinance.
yeah.
So I agree with a lot of things as a small business owner. I agree with what you're saying, Councilman Minicello. So maybe we could take a look at this. I think this discrimination complaint, to ask a volunteer board, and that's what they are, a volunteer board, to deal with this and to have hearings. I think that's a lot to ask of them. That's why we have a law department, human resources. But
I also think there's some people that are power hungry in this community and would love an opportunity like this to drag people
so
in
maybe
front
we
of
could
them.
take a look at revisiting this discrimination form, Councilor
think-
Fowler.
I think
you
the
know.
law department should go over if we form this Commission on Human Rights, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, then you go to the law department and you say, okay, how do we proceed from there? Because there should be operating rules and regulations.
Sure, and I think that's what we're trying to get at. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to have to concur with Councilor Minicello. Sounds like what you're establishing here is some sort of court, but I see nothing about due process in this language. You say, you know, that we could refer them to MCAD or some other, organization or board or something to that effect. I think that's where those complaints should initiate. If I represented somebody and they came to me and said, Brockton is polling me in front of their commission, claiming that I discriminated against them, and it's in front of, like you said, 7 volunteers with no legal background, I would say stay away. Like, there's no way we would go in front of this board. And so I just think in some ways, there's the fear of this becoming a kangaroo court. You're establishing something where people's rights or reputation are being argued. And I don't see anything in here that grants them due process. If you want to get in front, if your case goes into court, there's got to be some sort of probable cause, not just an accusation. And and that's the thing. You're going to be bringing accusations in front of this commission, in front of 7 volunteers who have no legal background. And what legal guarantees are offered to the defendant to make sure that whatever decision is come to, that he has due process, that he has representation from an attorney, that there are, rules of inadmissibility or rules of evidence. If somebody's being discriminated against, we have a plethora of legal forums for them to bring a lawsuit, to ask them to come before a civil rights commission. I just think is really, potentially setting people up for a destruction of their reputation, and without the due process rights that come with it.
Counselor, if I could, through the chair to you, that's exactly what you've had all along with the current Commission on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Someone went to that commission, they filed a complaint that a counselor refused to vote to appoint someone because it was a male. And the counselor who made that comment simply was reflecting on the fact that we needed to diversify the appointees in the city and include women. What you've described has always been in the books and could happen, and did happen, to a member of this body. It was Councilor Beauregard. She was accused of being, I don't want to say sexist. What is it when a woman doesn't want to vote for a man? I don't know, whatever it is, prejudice. So we're not changing anything. And
Right, but that issue, but as an elected official, right, really that's adjudicated in the next election. If people believe that a statement like that is one that's discriminatory or misogynistic or, like you said, I don't even know what the term is for male discrimination. But then, that statement is open, it's out, and now she, the person running against her would be able to campaign on that issue. So I don't know if bringing somebody in front of a board with really, again, as Councilor Minicello said, what's the ultimate authority, right? So they get in front of this board says, you've discriminated, now go see these other people. And what if they're wrong? What happens if, they say there's a finding of discrimination, and then it's referred to MCAD. The defendant goes in front of MCAD. The MCAD finds no discrimination. They go to court, they're found not guilty or not responsible. Well, are we now legally liable? I mean, this board, who's now a city board, has made an accusation, a libelous accusation against somebody, calling them discriminatory, calling them, whatever it may be, racist or whatever, that this board says, we find that you are this. They actually go to a real court of law. They're found that it did not happen. Is the city now on hook for liable? I don't know.
Well, Councilor, I would respond this way. Are all of those other communities doing it wrong? Are all of those communities hanging themselves out there to somehow be sued? If I can finish. The point is, we have internal affairs at the police department. Someone can walk in and make an accusation, and it's reviewed, and a report is written up, and I suppose if it's serious enough, the district attorney would take action. What we're talking about here is an opportunity for residents who don't know the legal system, who cannot afford an attorney, to come in and indicate, this is what happened to me. Would you please take a look at these facts, and would you help me with this problem? Now, they may say, you don't have an issue. They may say nothing was done that was improper. But what about the people that don't have access to an attorney, that don't have the money to hire one? What do we say to them?
Well, I think when it comes to, we have small claims courts where, where there a lot of people represent themselves. In an issue of discrimination, if you feel you're discriminated against, then there are avenues. MCAD, I don't know if it requires an attorney, but you can bring your matter before MCAD, or if you really feel you're injured, then you should have some skin in the game by hiring an attorney. Usually, most of those attorneys, if it's something where there's insurance involved, they would take those cases for free, but on a contingency. But I just don't. Again, if somebody came to my office and said, I've been accused of discrimination, I am being called before the Diversity, Inclusion, Human Rights Commission of Brockton, I would say, you're not going.
Right.
There's no way.
It's all completely voluntary.
Right.
As is mediation in anything.
Right, but now it's a one-sided discussion, right? The person who's making the accusation gets to tell their side of the story. Does the commission then make some sort of decision based upon one side of the story? And now that person's being accused in a public forum of being discriminatory.
I think I would end this by saying how that commission conducts itself will be determined by the quality of people that are appointed by the mayor. The mayor may very well put a couple of attorneys on there. I mean, I can't speak for him. Just as what we do is determined by the quality of the work that we do. And in defense of what all of these other communities are doing, and in defense of people who oftentimes do not know where to go when they have an issue, I think that we should give them an opportunity to be heard by a board of their peers, a commission of their peers that live in the city, so that they can come in and they can say, look, this is what happened to me. I don't think it should have happened to me. Would you please take a look at this and review it? And if they take a look at it and review it, as they do in Newton, as is on, and I copied this right off of their website. I'll just reference it very quickly.
I would just say,
Educate the public by presenting informative programs and discussions. I mean, I think we're hung up on the fact that all they'll do is adjudicate a beef that someone would have. Collaborate with residents, school staff, students, and businesses to support Newton's diversity initiatives. Resolve complaints of local discrimination through mediation or referral to the Mass Commission Against Discrimination. That's what they do in the city of Newton, and I would just say, why can't we do the same?
I would say that, and lastly on the point, that you're establishing a commission that has adjudication responsibilities without the protection of due process. That I just don't think that's right.
Thank you, councilors. I know, Councilman Cello, you had a question, but we have Councilor Nicastro that had asked to speak on this matter.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to suggest that perhaps you would continue this to the next ordinance committee meeting, because I think the proposed ordinance has value. I totally get where the two of you are coming from and your concerns, due process, evidentiary, and all that, but I would be willing to assist in doing some research to find out what these other communities, especially those that are similar to Brockton, how this commission operates in the community, what kind of cases they take. I'd be willing to help with the research on that so that we would have more information as to how these things really operate in other communities in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor, and I agree with that. I think we're, I think asking 7 people from the community to be attorneys, I think is a lot. So I think we need to review this and really make sure we're doing the right thing. Councilor Minichiello?
I'm going to suggest the same thing. I was just
Okay,
going to say, is it
perfect.
unreasonable then to go forward, to continue this so that we can get more information, to see how it works in Newton, to see what procedures they have in place or what their, guidelines are or their processes before we just jump to the next level and stage. Again, there's certainly occasions when people are discriminated against. Absolutely. And every reasonable-minded and good Brocktonian, okay, wants that to never happen. But before we move forward and just jump into the next best thing because it just sounds good, I think we need to be very careful. That's all. And Councilor Farwell, if I sounded a little bit
Passionate.
yeah, passionate, but I don't know, aggressive about it. I'm just saying to myself, my God, this can to an innocent person or just a person out there doing a good job with a small business, and someone has a hair across their keister and thinks that, I've been discriminated against. And no, it's not discrimination. You've got bad credit, or there's a legitimate reason. And then this poor person has to come before the board, a long day doing their thing, and has to justify themselves. And then if they're found to be nothing was wrong, how did it all work? Did they get badmouthed? Did it get published? It's in the minutes, or it's in the agenda. ASAC Flowers, Sorgi and Minichiello Law Firm. I mean, give me a break, And is the Diversity Commission going to, or Commission Against Diversity, going to publish it and just, it was a retraction, or they were found, that this person that filed the complaint is a kook. Oh, I don't think so. So, whatever.
Well, let me say this. As usual, it takes a woman to knock some sense into me and say, okay, let's take a step back and look at it. So, and don't ever apologize for your passion on an issue. So I'll move to continue.
Before that, I just would like to ask if there's anybody that would like to speak on this matter. I know we have a lot of people in the chambers. Anybody that would like to comment on this issue? We'll open it up. Councilor D'Agostino.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm looking at both sides of this, right? I know there are people that are not being treated fairly in our city, and I'm a business owner, and so I'm seeing both sides of this. I think, and the concerns raised about who's on the commission, one of the things I would hope you could look at when you're looking at other communities is, what is the criteria to be on those commissions? Because sometimes we know, whether it should be or shouldn't be, some of those appointments are, you helped on a campaign, someone knows you, it's political. This one can't be that way. And so maybe that's how we can help to make sure that some of the things that, the valid concerns that have been raised don't happen, because there's some criteria to make sure that folks that get on this commission have the right background, to handle this the right way so that it doesn't turn into a disaster or a lawsuit against the city. I think Mr. Minicello might have been the one to raise that, which I was sitting there thinking too, right? Somebody gets accused, their reputation's destroyed, and then later a different, MCAT or a court or whatever finds out they didn't do anything wrong, and then they sue the city, right? So I think there are issues that have to be addressed, and certainly there are residents who are not being treated right. We all know that, and Councilor Farwell, you reminded us all of that example in real estate, right? And so again, I think I'm glad you're gonna postpone this for further investigation, and I think I would just add, maybe looking at, in the research that's done, what is the criteria that other folks use for determining who gets added to these commissions? Because right in there, that might be the thing that keeps them clean and keeps them operating in an effective way. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And just point of information, I know many of you are aware, but a lot of our boards and commissions, our ordinances are set by ordinance, and a lot of the ordinances, for example, zoning, it requires to have an engineer, attorney, so it could be set up the same way. I don't think anybody else has any questions. I will entertain a motion.
Did Councilor Farwell make a motion to postpone, I
Motion
believe?
to postpone to the next ordinance meeting?
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to postpone this. All in favor? Okay. The ordinance is postponed until the next ordinance meeting. Thank you. Madam Clerk, last item, item number 4.
Ordinance, an ordinance amending Article 2, Section 28, compensation, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Brockton. Article 2, Section 28 is hereby amended by striking the provisions in its entirety and inserting the following language. The City Councilors shall receive in full for all services rendered compensation at the rate of $30,000 per annum commencing January 1, 2023. Invited to attend, Councilor Moses Rodriguez, Chief Financial Officer Troy Clarkson, City Clerk Timothy Cruz.
Good evening. Who would like to go first? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm actually the person who submitted the ordinance change. And before we go forward, I want to make sure that the order has to be amended, because it should actually state January 1st, 2024. Because the council, as it stands, cannot give itself a raise, so this is for the next council, whoever they may be. So I just wanted to make sure that...
Point of information, is that an amendment or is that a scrivener's error?
It was just, I think, just me drafting calendar-wise, so if you make the motion, I'll clean it up for the next meeting.
So moved.
Second. A motion's been made and seconded to correct to amend the date to read January 1st, 2024. All those in favor? All those opposed? The amendment passes.
Well, Madam Chair, the reason why I submitted this ordinance amendment is, as you know, we are a Plan B city where the council has a lot more involvement than some of the other council throughout the Commonwealth. And I wanted to make sure that future council members in our city here would be compensated to a level that's near what some of the other councils of cities of equal size or a little larger than the city of Brockton or around our size. I see a lot of members of the city's union here tonight, but I want to make sure that we're clear that when we're talking about increases in pay, that we don't have much of a say in terms of what unions negotiate or don't negotiate, because we're not part of that negotiation process. We're the final act when it comes to assessing the amount of funds that are dedicated from this body into city government. So I wanted to make sure that they know that I personally sympathize with the efforts that they're putting into looking for their due process and what that's due to them, but just so that you know, that's not within our preview. So the only thing that we control as city council, as you know, are ordinance positions and what individuals in our positions are paid or not paid. So I wanted to make sure that we understand that what we're doing here, again, is to bring the level of what the city council in this city should be compensated, because we don't want to run the risk of, in the future, having individuals who are living with their parents or living with other individuals as council members, or somebody who's well off or wealthy, because I think what it does, it takes away from a lot of individuals who might have the ability to perform this job. But I mean, we have to be realistic that some individuals are working 2 to 3 jobs to make their ends meet. And if this position isn't compensated at least to a small part-time position, I think we're probably losing some good individuals that could be performing this duty. And I know that the clerk is here. He can probably go over some of the lists of what counselors in other cities of equal size are getting compensated. I also want to let the committee know that it's my intent to submit an order to increase the pay of the members of the school committee as well. I talked to our council here, and basically she told me that we can't, just because of where the positions are, we can't just incorporate that into this. So I'm going to be submitting an order with the council as well to increase their pay as well. It's also important that we realize that we're running and I say we're running because the city council is responsible for the financial well-being of the city. And we're running almost a $530 million, a $500 million business. And those individuals who are responsible for making sure that every dollar and cent is, we're keeping tabs on every single dollar and cents, are this body here. And I think they looking to compensate the entire body in a tune of about $330,000 a year is not a lot to ask. So I ask for your support on this so we can move forward with this. And I want to hear from the clerk and perhaps the CFO as well to see what they have to say, and then I'll come back and say something. Thank you.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Counselor. Mr. Clerk, I know your office did research on salaries for elected officials in different parts of the state. If you
I did,
would
and
like to-
I think you all have copies of it, and a few people here do too. Did quite a bit of work working with the CFO's office, and a little bit with the auditor's office on I've spoken to about 40 different cities in the area, basically all the gateway cities, and what you have in front of you is pretty representative of the top cities and population-wise in the state. And just not to be confused, one of the things that the ad hoc committee was asked to look at was staffing for the council also. Where that column there, where it says 2 staff members for the council, that's not 2 each. That's 2 people for the whole council. The only place that has staff in an office that are assigned to them are Boston and Cambridge. And Cambridge, interesting, if you look, I have the populations out there also. Brockton's much closer to Cambridge than we are to quite a few other cities. And Cambridge, actually, their council makes $89,000 plus each year, and they do have an office, and they do have staff members assigned to them. Most of the cities and towns, cities that have staff, there's 2 staff members reporting to the city clerk, and that work is what we already do here. I mean, that's preparing agendas, things like that. But for instance, Quincy does have somebody that is assigned to the council through the clerk that is there to help with research, things like that, which we don't have right now, but that's something you may want to look at and talk with the mayor about the budget, in the future, because that would be additional people. But as you can see,
Would you mind reading them just quick, maybe not the whole sheet, but just so people at home can get an idea?
yeah, and this will be on the website, city website tomorrow.
Okay.
We were still putting in fumes. In fact, Lynn is empty. I was waiting for an email today that didn't come from the city of Lynn, but So it will be an official ad hoc, the ad hoc committee was put together at the request of the council a few months back, and so it will be. In fact, I have given a copy, the press has a copy, so I'm sure it'll be in the Enterprise anyways. But, so yeah, for the public at home, I mean, Boston is on here, a little bit different. I don't really consider them a comparable. The councilors there make $103,000, and they have just voted a substantial raise on that the mayor hasn't signed in Boston yet. We'll see what they do there. But again, not really comparable. Worcester, which is much bigger than us, but is a town manager style of government, $33,000 is what the councilors make. And the council president makes $37,000 there. Now, the council president there is also the mayor, but the mayor of Worcester is really kind of they have a town manager. The mayor is the council president, and it's really just a distinguished job. You shake hands and sign things. You really just a full-time, just a counselor there. Because that is one other thing that I happen to think you should look at, and again, it's up to you, but from sitting over there and sitting in the president's chair in the past, I'm a big believer that the president should get some kind of extra stipend. You've served as president before, and it's a lot of extra time to be president of the council. You really have to put in a lot of extra time just working with all the different subcommittees, with the mayor's office, so I happen to think there should be an additional stipend for the council president, but again, that's up to you. Springfield is at $19,500, but has a proposal that hasn't been voted on yet, just like you do, for $28,000. Again, Cambridge is $89,000. Lowell, which is just about the same size as us, is $25,000. Again, the council president gets $30,000. Again, that's also a town manager type of government. Right now, Brockton, we're at $16,696. The last vote was for $15,000, so that's the base that you work off of. But we're tied to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, so over the last 5 or 6 years since it was last voted, it's gone up to $16,696. Quincy is at $33,836, and they are the only other place I found that has a staff member that is there to help research. Now, again, the requests would come through the clerk to that person, because otherwise that could get very, if all 11 councilors were dealing directly with a staff member, that staff member would be pulling their hair out, I'm sure, by about noontime the first day. So, but that is something to think about. New Bedford is $25,000 plus, and they're tied to the CPI also. The president there gets $30,000. Fall River is only $16,091. Again, 2 staff members for the council. They're in the same boat. One is very much administrative, puts the paperwork together, gets the agendas out, and one is there to help with research or with mailings or things like that. Somerville, which is quite a bit smaller than the city of Brockton, gets $40,000. And again, they're like us, so they're a strong council, weak mayor system, Plan B form of government, which does add to, the public wouldn't know the difference, but Plan B government adds to the work that you as councilors do with a strong council, weak mayor system. And that doesn't, for the people at home, that doesn't mean our mayor is weak. It means the system of government is set up that the council has more responsibility than other cities and towns. Town managers, which some of the bigger cities have, the council really has quite a bit less input. That doesn't mean they don't work, but they don't have as much responsibility as a Plan B form of government, which we have. Again, Revere is $19,000. Medford's $29,000. Everett's $25,000. Salem is actually, the mayor gets $150,000, and the Lawrence Salem is the council gets 10% of whatever the mayor gets. So they get $15,000 right now. Chelsea, again, a gateway city, but much smaller than us, gets $28,000. So that's the chart I have here, and again, it will be on the city website sometime tomorrow, or Monday at the latest, and I will file it with the council at the next council meeting as the official report of the ad hoc committee. I have mayor's salary on here, and again, that's not what's in front of you tonight, and I have most of the school committee pay. School committees, we pay $5,000. There are several that get $15,000, $8,000, $12,000. Cambridge is $38,000 for the school committee there. Boston is actually fairly low but they aren't appointed, they don't run. They're appointed in Boston. It's not an elected spot, so. So you all have that. Again, it'll be on the website tomorrow or Monday, possibly Monday morning. Any questions I'll take, but I will say, as somebody who has sat over there, it's never easy to vote a pay raise. However, I know how much work goes into that job. And it's a full-time job at a part-time salary. And again, I can tell you that as somebody that it wouldn't affect anymore, two things I think will happen. And one, I wouldn't have wanted to happen when I was sitting on that side. But I always thought the Ward 1 councilor should run unopposed every year. Other than that, one thing that this will do, it will help. We don't have enough candidates to run for office, at least enough good candidates. We have 11 good candidates who have won over the last time, I will say that. But we don't have enough good candidates to make it at least, at $30,000, nobody is still doing it for the money. If you break it down, it's a pretty horrible hourly pay scale. But all of us have done it for the reason of public service. I know everybody I ever served with was in it for the right reason. But at least this will make it so that you attract quality candidates. The vote that you would take on this is not, just so the public understands that, is not for yourself. It's for the next council. It doesn't take effect until after the next election. So some of you may not be here. In fact, if you make it, an attractive, fairly attractive salary, more people will run. So you don't know who will be here next year. And that's something, that can be the downside for yourselves. But I know that everybody here would think if the right person is in that job, that's what we want. So again, I'll take any questions, but I think that you absolutely positively should be pushing this. Again, there are other people in this room here that I hope they get what they need and deserve to, but that's not, we don't have a lot of say on that at this point, other than supporting. But I'll take any questions, but I really think there's no reason not to do this. It doesn't happen often enough, and it's a difficult thing. And to do small increments, it's like water rates years ago. If you don't have to take big chunks if you do it properly when you do it. So, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilors, any questions?
I think, should we hear from everybody first and then?
I think, Mr. Clarkson, did you want to speak on the, I don't know if there's.
I certainly can, Madam Chairman. I don't have a lot to add because I think what's been said is not only relevant but accurate. I'll share just very briefly my personal experience. As many of you know, early in my career, I served in the community where I live in an elected position. That position was paid, and I concur with the sentiment of the clerk. Civic involvement is a challenge for us, both for volunteers, for elected officials, and even for full-time folks. And so if you can do things to continue to attract qualified and motivated candidates for public office, I think that's a good idea. The research that the clerk has done, I think, provides empirical evidence that this proposal is reasonable and within reasonable amounts, given what other cities and other gateway cities are paying. I was going to mention, and I'm glad Councilor Rodriguez mentioned, that it seems to me reasonable, if we're making that argument, that we should make the same argument for the school committee. So I think that that's appropriate as well. From a budgetary standpoint, I think changing the date to January of 2024 makes it easier to implement, because obviously we're in the middle of a fiscal year right now, so we can project forward. So when you get to the questions, I'm happy to answer any of them, but I think this is a philosophically and fiscally sound proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. So this evening, I do want to recognize that we do have a couple of school committee members, Ms. Judy Sullivan and Mr. Tim Sullivan, here in the chambers with us. And as we mentioned earlier, we have union members from 1162 here. And as the chair, I know Our invited guests have already spoken on this matter, but I don't know if there is anybody that wants to speak that's in the audience regarding this. I will allow somebody to speak if anybody wants to go on the record to speak at all. No? Okay. Mr. Gazzaro? Yes, please come forward and state your name for the record, please.
My name is Frank Gazzaro, a member of 1162 City Employees Union. I think everybody here would be all for the council's getting a raise. Nobody would feel that that would be unheard of. And in my personal experience, my mother-in-law was a counselor for 20 years, and I know there's a lot of work that you people do, so there's no issue with that. I think what I want to say is that the people that you see here would like to see you get a raise simply because it gives us another bargaining chip. So when we give everybody in the city raises and you don't give us a raise, that's why we're all here tonight. And as far as I'm concerned, we're going to come to every meeting that we can get people together. We got like 40 people tonight, which is a pretty good turnout for a meeting where there's only 5 counselors up at the counter. So, listen, I don't think anybody would deny you a raise. I think that for us, like I said, we would just like to see that this is another bargaining chip. If the city gives everybody a raise and doesn't give us a raise, what's that telling you, right? We don't amount to anything. And the employees of this city certainly do have a benefit to this city. We all have devoted our time. 95% of us live in the city of Brockton. We're all voting members. And, you know, we're not disposable people. We're not anything, but we're all regular individuals that own homes, have kids, that go to school, and we pay our taxes. We come to work every day and make this city function. So listen, we would like you to get a raise. We're good with that. It's another bargaining chip, but we can't be the only ones that don't get satisfied.
Thank you, Mr. Gazzaro, and you're always welcome. Thank you very much. Councilors, do you have any questions or? Councilor Mendez?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Clarkson, because we have the chart that it looks into the city and it shows the population, but it fails to show the budget amount and what percentage goes into the pay towards the councilors for that community. So when we're looking into this, we're looking into the population, like it was mentioning for Cambridge, but I just know that their budget is probably way much more than Brockton, so they can afford to pay more for their counselors. So is that something that was maybe the clerk could let us know too? Was that something that was looked into when the chart was created?
No, I do not believe so, no, but it's certainly something that that's readily available. I mean, I can tell you just based on my knowledge of some of these other municipalities, Cambridge, you are correct, has a population very close to Brockton's. Their budget, in rough numbers, is some $200 million more annually. They have the benefit of a lot of commercial, industrial property. But I think if you look at some of the other gateway cities that the clerk provided, and you look at their budgets in relation to their population, they would be very close to, if not a lower ratio of population to budget. For instance, Fall River, New Bedford, and Quincy, right around the same as ours. So we can do that research for sure. I suspect it's going to probably confirm what the rest of these numbers already show, and that is that the positions, both council and school committee in Brockton are paid fairly well below what the market, so to speak, pays.
Yes. The other question that I have, if we were to keep it at this, with this amount, how would this translate to the taxpayers into increase that they would see? Do we have a number for that? How would that really, they would, in the budget?
No, I mean, I certainly don't have that off the top of my head, but if you're looking at it, let's do some simple math. And if it's about 15,000 per counselors, and there's 11 of you, that's $165,000 out of a $500 million budget, as Councilor Rodriguez noted. You're talking the fractions, tiny fractions of a penny would be the cost per taxpayer. So I can tell you with confidence, and that's why I said earlier that this is financially reasonable and sustainable, because it is a very small fraction of the overall city budget.
And I don't disagree that the councilors definitely do need an increase, and like you said, but I just needed to ask those questions because I know that the public, when they see that there's a proposal for an increase of almost doubling of what we make, then everybody is already concerned that everything is just getting to be so expensive, and everyone is concerned about the recession and what's going on and the rates increase, and so people are just concerned, and it's always hard when we have to make those decisions. But thank you so much.
Councilors, any other questions? Councilor Minicello?
I would just say that I'm glad to hear that the school committee is also going to be included in this, because they're certainly on the chart at the bottom of the list with regard to other like-kind communities. With respect to what was stated here by the union member, I think this body certainly supports fair bargaining and reasonable increases when the financial fiscal state of the city can certainly support that in those circumstances. So we certainly, as a body, again, we reiterate, we're not involved in the bargaining like we were with the school committee. The school committee was involved elbows deep with bargaining. The city council is a little bit different, but we're involved with all the different boards, planning board, ZBA, Concom. So it's sort of a different animal. So the time, as a school committee member, I was always scratching my head. Wow, the council doesn't have to negotiate with any of their constituencies. Like, boy, they must have a lot of free time on their hands. No, they don't. I'm finding out about that firsthand. In the mornings, I'm sitting at a street watching trucks go by because my constituents are upset that trucks are going through a neighborhood, too fast. And so I've been out there 3 hours one morning at 7 in the morning, another hour today, another hour the other day. I mean, I never realized what was involved in this. Councilor Farwell tried to warn me, but I didn't listen to him. There is a lot of work, but we also recognize that the unions do a lot of work and keep the city running. And, we certainly support fair bargaining, and fiscal wherewithal for everyone, if in fact the budget can support it. And, so that's all I'm going to say today.
Thank you, Councilor. And yes, I'm sure I speak for my colleagues that you're all appreciated, and we appreciate you being here. And as you all know, we're not part of the negotiations process, but we appreciate you being here, and we're glad you were able to speak. Any other questions on the ordinance before us? Councilor Fowler.
No, well, just a statement. I think it's $154,000 more this would cost, Mr. Claxon, am I right? 11 times 14?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with all that's been said. It's never an easy time to put through a salary increase for a political position, even though it's in the future. And I'm not one to duck anything, so I'm going to speak out on what I wrote on social media recently. There was a gentleman named Adam Briggs, I don't know who he is, who said, well, how many hours do they put in per month or per week? That would be a good stat to make the decision whether this was the right thing to do. So I wrote and I posted on social media and as public that I hadn't seen the survey data, and I can't speak for anyone else, but full transparency, I think on average, we put in about, all of us, put in about 18 hours per week. We returned constituent service phone calls to city departments to assist residents, researching state laws, state regulations, and city ordinances, writing resolves, orders, ordinances for review by legislative council, and filing with the city clerk. Unlike Boston or any other city, we have no staff. We don't have a research assistant. We have no secretarial support. You type your own reports, letters, communications. You prepare your own remarks and/or press releases. We have a minimum 4 meetings per month, except for July and August. Some can be short, less than an hour. Some can last until after 11 p.m., which occurred a couple of weeks ago. Then you have meetings of boards and commissions, zoning, Board of Appeals, License Commission, where you represent constituents on issues. Councilors hold ward meetings, which require planning and research for those of you who are ward councilors. I've witnessed, having served as mayor, the growing complexity of municipal government, whether it's in municipal finance, collective bargaining, environmental services, public safety, public education, and I've said this on a couple of issues. You know, if there is a political price to pay for believing that this is the right thing to do, I'll pay it. I'm not going to equivocate. I think in this city, for what's required of city councilors, what has been proposed is absolutely reasonable and defensible. And I will vote for it when it comes up. And I think all of you do exactly what I put down in social media. I know you do, because we all go through the same thing. And so I just wanted that entered into the record.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's say I certainly didn't run for office for the money. And in fact, I didn't even know what a city councilor made until after I was elected. But I believe everyone should be fairly compensated. Brockton is the 6th largest community in the Commonwealth. I think Councilor Farwell and Councilor Minicello and Clerk Cruz did a good job of explaining what the responsibilities are in this job. I believe at this point, it's not me being compensated, it's the Ward 5 seat is being compensated. And so I just think that it's at this point, by looking at the comparables, it's just not compensated at a fair level. I think this ordinance does do that. But again, this is not for Jeff Thompson. This is for the Ward 5 City Councilor seat. So I do support this ordinance. I will be voting in favor, and I think it's a good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nacastro, you'd like to speak on this matter?
Thank you. I support an increase as well, and all your points are very well taken. I just want to urge you to consider amending this ordinance to add an additional stipend for the president of the council. 3 of you here tonight have served as president: Councilor Rodriguez, Councilor Azak, Councilor Farwell. You know, and I just know from talking to the 3 of you, the additional amount of time that was required to do the job right as president. And so I just feel that that an additional amount of money, you know, it doesn't have to be gangbusters. The range that we're showing on the chart that was prepared by the clerk and the CFO goes from an additional $500 to an additional $4,000. I think you can find something in there that, you know, would satisfy you and would address what I'm talking about. So I ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Attorney Resnick, just point of it, does that need to be done tonight, or can we do that?
You could do that at full city council as well.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to share with the councilors, 9 years ago, when I was elected to the city council, I walked into the clerk's office, and our previous clerk, Mr. Zioli, the first words that came out of his mouth, it was, he said to me, "So are you ready to work for pennies an hour?" And I didn't realize at the time what that, you know, what it meant, because you never calculated how much money we were really making. But over the years, we have had increases, but I think this will definitely be, it puts value to the position. I think it, we value what we do, we value the work that's done in the city, and in order to get good candidates and that work hard, we have to compensate them. So that's why I would support this as well. With that being said, councilors, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to recommend favorably to the full city council.
Second it.
A motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? This ordinance goes back to the city council favorably. Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody that was here from 1162. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you to our invited guests. And I believe with no further business before us this evening, this meeting's adjourned.